Where were you actually born?
I grew up in a rural community outside of Cleveland, Ohio, and I came to Chicago in 1967 when I married my husband. My husband had been a long term member of this church. In fact, he was baptized here. His family lived in Woodlawn, then lived in Chatham, and then moved to Hyde Park. He went to Hyde Park High School. Uh, we met down at the University of Illinois, where I was getting a master's in library science, and he was finishing a doctorate in education. And I've lived in Hyde Park since then. My daughters went to Ray School and Kenwood Academy, and then they went off to college and now live in the suburbs. Uh, but I took over the job as archivist of the church, and this congregation has had a long, long history. Uh, they started in Fort Dearborn in 1833 when there were less than about 250 people in Chicago. And they moved around kept moving farther south. And in 1926, they merged with a congregation called Woodlawn Park that had their building on the corner of 64th and Kimbark.
What do you live in now?
I live in Hyde Park. For many, many years, we lived in an urban renewal townhouse in Hyde Park. And about 10 years ago, we moved to a vintage high rise along the lake.
Is your husband still around? Still around?
Uh, you see him every day coming in here and
Oh,
working.
nice.
He's here. He's going to be interviewed today, too. Yeah.
What would you say changed about the Woodlawn area from back in the day?
Okay. Well, when I first came in 1967, there were 3 and 6 flats located all the way down the block. Um, there were apartment buildings on all of the vacant land. So, and one of the first times I visited was right after the police raid on the church. So, I didn't see the beginnings of the Blackstone Ranger involvement in this community, but saw the really painful part for the congregation because there were many very serious charges laid against our pastor. He, I think, was probably the most Christian person I've ever met, but he could also be very provocative in the kind of statements he made. So he was dragged before the Congressional Investigations Committee to discuss the economic development grant that was given to TWO. But they had a good time mocking him. It was actually a TWO grant, but you probably know we have a gym up on the 3rd floor. And what had happened was it started off that the boys club rented the space, trying to do some gang mediation. And they discontinued that relationship, but of course the kids were here. So we tried many things, including providing legal help for some of the guys, hoping that we could turn them around. We know now that that didn't all work. We probably peeled off some people to better. When I started attending here, We had after-school tutoring and the Head Start program. First Church had one of the first Head Start programs in the city of Chicago. Again, we were in trouble with the city in that Mary Lou Todd, who was a Woodlawn resident, who was really behind the start of the Head Start programs, went directly to Washington when she heard that there was going to be money for preschool in disadvantaged areas. So we have off on the wrong foot there because we were not the preferred place to be. But we had, so when I was here in '67, we already had the Head Start program. We ran that until 2007. And by that point, it was very expensive to run it, and we just did not have the resources to support it beyond the federal funding. So when I came in '67, we were working with the Rangers, and one of the things, and I can't think of his first name, Mr. Brown, who's a fairly famous entertainer, did a program with the Rangers, and we had a musical performance in the sanctuary. And my mind is blanking on what it was called. Opportunity Knocks. So
I was going to ask you, what makes the Woodlock community so rich?
makes it so rich. I'm interested in how you came to that title, because most people consider Woodlawn rather down and out. I mean, it's rich in vacant land. It's beginning to redevelop, but I remember when the L went almost all the way to the Metro tracks, and there were stores lined up. Now, by the time I came, 63rd Street was not as fashionable shopping street, but there were stores lined down both sides. And urban renewal, or eventually they were all torn down. So, but it's interesting to watch. I see more diverse people living in Woodlawn now than 35 years ago. We keep hoping that more housing will be built, schools will get better. But there are now some charter schools. We'll see if they improve the quality of education here in Woodlawn. Woodlawn does not, I'm not sure whether it's classified as a food desert in terms of access to groceries. I mean, I know things are getting better there. I mean, there's an Aldi's over in Cottage Grove now. But for a long time, you had to go to Hyde Park or South Shore to do grocery shopping. So we aren't seeing, I haven't seen a lot of businesses coming into Woodlawn yet.
Well, my second question I was going to ask you was, uh, is the violence that different from I was going to ask you
Was the violent? How did the violence change from when you were around?
Uh, you can see if you look at all of our stained glass windows, boys with stones and rocks. It was pretty bad because the Rangers started off over on Blackstone Avenue, and the Disciples were farther west, but they came this way to attend Hyde Park High School. So there was a lot of,
It was a lot of killing.
I'm not sure so much killing as just the fights,
Very vicious.
vicious harassment of people. Um, this thing, I mean, to me, the whole thing of the drive-by shootings is much more a recent kind of violence
Right.
than, my mother-in-law lived in Hyde Park, and there were times when Hyde Park was a very iffy place to live, too. And I know that she was robbed at least 3 times. On the other hand, we lived in Hyde Park in our townhouse for 36 years. We were broken into once. Our neighbors asked them what they were doing, and they told them to shut up and go inside. But that was enough to drive them away. Um, so we really didn't see much. The church has been broken into to steal food from our food pantry. But I think Woodlawn is really settling down. The gang strife is not. Although, a year ago, 2 years ago, gentleman was killed over on Minerva. So
Okay. Um, what would you really like? What are the goods about the Woodlawn community? What would you say is like a quality about the Woodlawn community?
I think there's a lot of hope for the Woodlawn community. I